got links, or at least I saw them, between this evening and this morning. This morning and this evening. We're looking as a church at the life of David. The little guy that became king. And we've been looking at him for the last few weeks, several weeks now, and we'll be looking at him for the next few weeks as well. And I was thinking as we were singing about this morning's message, as we were thinking this morning of David and Bathsheba, that very famous story. And the whole thought there of David having this, we sung some words there that having that broken heart. And there was a stage, as we were looking at this morning, of David kind of committing that adultery with Bathsheba and kind of covering it up and keeping that kind of facade on and so on. And then Nathan comes to him and kind of said, look, this is what has happened in your life. You need to just, open up and so on. And we read this morning, I read this morning between the message and communion. Psalm 51, which is a great word that we understand that David wrote once he had that kind of broken spirit, broken heart. And he realised what had happened and he needed to work that one through before the Lord. And then during this past week, when we were talking about Kings Oasis, I kind of said, is there anyone speaking on Sunday evening? To which the answer was not at the moment. So I said, I feel I ought to be saying something. I didn't know what. So through 24 hours, I kind of thought about and prayed about what to say this evening, and my mind went back, my thoughts went back to the story of David. But before the event of this morning, before the David and Bathsheba event, to something that we looked at as a church a few weeks ago. And there's a story of David and Goliath. Hence the picture. And we sung in one of the songs there, that the battle belongs to the Lord, and to give him glory and honour. And so let's look at this passage. It's from 1 Samuel chapter 17. I'm not going to read the whole story. You're familiar with the story, I'm sure. Although it's not to say that you should read it through again, and I would encourage you to read it through again. But I'm just going to take the first few verses of 1 Samuel 17. I'm looking at the top of the page to find a page number in this Bible, and therefore several of the church Bibles. It's 288. Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled a sukkah in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephrath, Dan, between Sukkah and Amakah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle lines to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley in between. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out from the Philistine camp. He was over 9 feet tall. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armour of bronze, weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze cleaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of the Israelites, Why do you come out and line up for battle? I am not a Philistine, and you are not the servants of Saul. Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us. Then the Philistines said, This day I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other. On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. So say you're very familiar with the story. David, little David, not king by any means yet, did not know that day he was going to be fighting a giant of a man. His range, it says in the NIV, there around 9 feet. There are suggestions that he may have been smaller than that, but nonetheless he was a big man, particularly compared with a little guy called David. He came actually to bring supplies to see his brothers, to check them out. Dad said, hey, take some supplies, give them to them, because they were in the army. They were on the Israelite side, facing the Philistines on the other side of the valley. And then there is this idea, which kind of sounds, if it was even, fine. Let's not have a bloodbath. Let's not have hundreds or thousands of people killed. Let's just have a one-on-one. And you send out your best, and we'll send out our best, and whoever wins, then that's the end of the battle, and that saves a lot of death and destruction. But of course, the Israelite army looked there, and we're told they were terrified. There was a reward being offered by the king, King Saul. He said, if anyone from my army will go out and fight this Goliath and win, you can have a reward. Your reward is to marry my daughter, so kind of like a princess, and you can be exempt from taxes for the rest of your life. It's interesting that obviously that reward didn't really attract much attention from the army, because they all still hid behind their shields or whatever and thought, no way, not even for that, for marrying the king's daughter or to be exempt from taxes, no way am I going to get involved in this. And it really wasn't going to work for David either. There seemed to be a real doubt. The soldiers, you see, doubted their ability. That's what it seemed. They get presented with this, go out there, there's a reward if you go out there. If not, fighting and beating a giant of a man was not reward enough. But they doubted their ability. They doubted they could do this. Did David doubt his ability to do this as well? You ready? No. Well, you see, my answer would be yes. I think David actually doubted his personal ability to beat Goliath. And I guess so many of us doubt our ability to do something wonderful. I mean, how many of us if I were to tell you, you're going to do something amazing, you're going to do something wonderful, you're going to go, yeah, I doubt it. Turn to someone next to you and say, I doubt my ability. said to David in 1 Samuel 17 and 33. Here's what he says. You, because you remember David goes up to Saul, he says, I'll fight Goliath. And Saul says to David, you are not able to fight this Philistine. You are only young. And he, Goliath, has been a warrior from his youth. You are not able, says Saul to David, you are only. You are not able, you are only. I wonder how many again of us here today have had instilled in our minds from various people, you are not able to do that. Because you are only. You can finish your own sentence. You are not able, you are only a boy. You know, you are not able to diet. You are not able to witness to your neighbour. You are not able to overcome that bad habit or that addiction that you've got. You're not able to fight through the pain in your body. You're not able to stand up to your spouse. You're not able to defeat that bully that keeps coming at you. You're not able to cope with that job that you're in anymore. You're not able to feel good about yourself. You're not able to live a life that God wants you to live. You're not able because you are only weak. You are only ordinary. You are only a housewife. You are only young. You are only a new Christian. You are only a beginner. You're only a sinner. You're only an old person now. You're only a thinker, not a doer. You're only, again, fill in the blank. David turns up at this battlefield. Young David, little David, who looks after a few sheep back home and sometimes goes to the king to play a harp to soothe him. And he's told, you can't fight this giant of a man. You're only young. You remember we said on Sunday morning, a few Sunday mornings ago, he was kind of like a pretty boy, you know, he was an old handsome little cute guy. You're not able because you're only. I loved this guy David when I was studying him last year. I just so related to David because the way he's portrayed in the Bible just brings him as such a human, if you like, so normal. And I'd encourage you to read through the whole story of David. It covers quite a few pages of the Bible. And as you read through, you kind of, this is just a normal human guy who God used for something. And he had his ups and he had his downs. And you remember David's family, his brothers, his older brothers, looked at him and said, you're only. King Saul looked at David. Come on. You're only. Goliath, when he saw David walk towards him, laughed and said, what is this? Is this the best you can do? What am I, a dog that you come and throw a stick at me? I mean, that's a pretty big insult, isn't it? And I think most of us in this room today can feel like, I can't. Because I'm only ... Most of your life, most of my life, we felt kind of put down. Put down by family, or teachers, or friends, or co-workers, or neighbours, or even the media. We kind of feel put down. And so you conclude, I can't do that. I can't go there. I can't say this because I am only a. So how many are there tonight who are I'm onlys? How many I'm onlys are there here this evening? That's right, me too. Who was David fighting for? What was at stake here? See, here's David's answer to the king's rebuttal. He says that he has looked after sheep. Yeah, that's a great follow-up line, isn't it? I looked after sheep, Your Majesty. He says, when a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it. I struck it and rescued the sheep from its mouth. And when it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them. And here's what he carries on saying, because he has defiled the armies of the Lord. The same Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. And you know, it doesn't matter how big your giant is. What matters is how big your God is.
Amen.
If you have a great big God inside you, then He will bring down any giant that you confront it with. So say it out loud. I have a great big God inside me. I have a great big God inside me. Believe that. And there is a lot at stake. You see, if David said, I'll go out and fight this guy, and if David loses this battle, have you worked this one out? If he loses this battle, the whole nation loses. This is little David, remember? Dove, sheep, like that. If he loses this battle, the whole of God's army, the whole of God's nation loses. It's a lot at stake. But there's no one else who's willing to do it. And so Saul says, okay, go. And we're told that David goes out and he walks down and he picks up 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, we don't know how big these stones are. Some say they were big stones that people used in those days. Some say little pebbles. He picks up 5 stones and he has a sling. And Goliath has mainly a sword. That's another weapon as well. Notice that in the reading, that he has a sword. If David has a sling and Goliath has a sword, what should David do? He should keep his distance from Goliath. Remember, just think about this. If Goliath's got a sword here, he's only going to be able to get you if you get close to him. So you keep your distance. If your enemy, not Goliath, if your enemy, whatever that is, whatever that temptation is, whatever that sin is, whatever that thing that comes your way is, it's a person, place, something that takes you away from living God's abundant life, what do? You keep your distance from it. Keep away. Because the moment you are close enough to get a swipe from that thing, you're in great danger. So David kept away from Goliath. He had this sling and he had his stone. And you can hear in this storyline, Goliath kind of goading him. Come on, come a bit closer, come on. Come close to me. And he ran to his sword. And David doesn't get close. Keeps away, keeps back. Because if David comes closer, he is a loser. And I like what I wrote down, but you're not benefiting from this. If you take the C off of closer, you become a loser. I liked it. David, who is not able to because he is only a, makes a real cold statement right in front of Goliath. Goliath is wielding his sword and cursing David with names of the gods. But David doesn't even mention the weapon he's holding in his hand. This is what David said. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin. And he doesn't say, but I come against you with some stones and a sling. He doesn't say that. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defiled. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. See, his strength, did we not sing it a few minutes ago? His strength comes from the Lord. So who has confidence in the Lord? Who has confidence in the Lord? Who has confidence in the Lord? We're getting there. So David continues, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And he says the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. David didn't step up to Goliath for the king's daughter. He didn't step up to Goliath because he fancied getting some tax relief. I suppose he didn't earn much being a shepherd boy. He did it, he says, that the whole world may know that there is a God in Israel. You got giants to fight? I want you to name in your own head, I have to shout it out loud. I want you to name in your own mind your giant. And you know what it is. I don't know. I have no clue what it is. I don't need to know what it is. But somewhere in your life there is a giant that you keep kind of avoiding. You know he's there, you know he's goading you, you know he's kind of, and you know you ought to fight and get rid of him, but he's there, and you kind of keep your distance if you can. Sometimes you get too close, you get a swipe, and you've got a giant. And kind of put up on the screen in your, you know we've all got screens in our minds, but no one else sees. Put up on the screen in your mind what that giant is in your life. And stand before that giant. You know, you've got it in 3D there. Whatever that giant is. And draw the battle line. You've got something you've got to do. You know there's a battle that's got to go on, and you know you've got to win this battle to really get through life. And you don't do it because you're going to marry a princess. And you don't do it because you're going to get some extra money and some tax exemption out of it. Go forward and fight that battle, whatever it is, whether it's an addiction, whether it's a pain, whether it's a bully, whether it's a family member, whether it's a temptation, whatever it is, that giant that's there. You're going to fight that battle. Not for any material gain, not for even any honour to yourself, but you're going to fight it so that the whole world will know that there is a God in your life. See, we come up and start to play a little bit of music, because I want us to kind of focus on this for a few moments now. And kind of now taking off the story from David fighting Goliath, and now thinking about you fighting some battle, some giant that you've got in your life. I'm not talking about something small. I'm talking about something big. A real giant. You know you ought to be fighting, you ought to be raising a battle against, you ought to be getting rid of this thing, because it's just getting in your way of honouring the Lord. David was not stepping up to the mark because he was confident in himself. As I say, David was very human, but he was confident in God. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 3 and 4, Paul writes, "For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not weapons of this world." In other words, we're not fighting and stacking with swords and things like that. On the contrary, says Paul, they have divine power. Divine power to demolish strongholds. Our weapons have divine power. Say it, divine power.
Divine power.
That's what you've got in your life. And so what I want you to do is to kind of step up to the battle line now. In your own way and in your own time, and I'm just going to encourage you to do something. I want you to just visualize this giant that's in your life. To say, you know what it is. You know who it is. And you know that perhaps you've been fighting him, or wanting to fight him, or backing off, and you've never really won. And you kind of think, I can't because I'm only a. I want you to now see that you've got that divine power in your life. God